That's a great question. And this is probably the next big leap I need to take. Most of my business has been built through word of mouth so far. And I do post on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, but not super regularly. And I am a member of a couple of organizations where I'm listed in their directory, but it's been, I've got some third, referral from a referral from a referral. I've gotten that deep yet, but I have not yet taken the step of a big leap. So if you're here, you probably talked to somebody else who talked to somebody else who worked with me and was really happy with their outcome.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses, and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
To Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Chauncy Gardner, a lifelong educator with 25 plus years in independent schools, whose journey from teaching French and English to serving as a dean of students gave her firsthand insight into what makes students tick before she found her true calling in independent college counseling. Chauncy's approach challenges the anxiety-driven narrative that only admission to a short list of extremely selective schools can lead to success and happiness in life. Her work helps the students gain a stronger sense of self and find their authentic voice, while helping parents manage the relentless pressure and false shoulds that society reinforces at every turn during the college application process. Chauncy believes the best college plans are built around each student's true strengths, ambitions, and dreams, proving that with the right guidance, the college process can shift from stressful to genuinely exciting. Welcome to the show, Chauncy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. And I'd love for us to rewind a bit, back to the origin story, because you could be doing so many things, right? Could be a chef. You could be, kept doing as a teacher, right? Now, eventually, you turn to coaching / college application coaching specifically. And I would love to understand a little bit more about that, that shift, and why coaching, why doing that in the first place.
Yeah, well, I'd love to tell that story. So I was a teacher, as you said, and then a dean of students for many, many years, mostly in one school in the small town where I live, but I worked also for a while in San Francisco and before that in New York. And I had been at the school for so long that I started to get a little itchy. I wanted a new challenge. I wanted to try something new. And college counseling is a job that exists inside independent schools also. So I started working with our college counselor, first informally and then formally, and then became the director of the department within the school. So I was doing the work, but still working at the school. It's funny, I'm still getting used to, when I got the email from Success Leaves Clues, I was like, well, I'm not really a coach. But the more I've thought about it since you guys first reached out and we started talking, the more I realized that that is in fact exactly what I'm doing. So anyway, I left the school after my kids graduated to try something new. I worked as a writer for a CEO membership organization for 4 years, which had nothing at all to do with my previous career. But in that time, I spent a lot of time with CEOs, many of whom were founders, and started to see a possible way that I could combine my previous experience and expertise with my own business. And so that's what really got me started and made me sort of think that this might be possible as a path for me. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you thought yourself not necessarily as a coach. And when I read the bio, the intro, right, I'm thinking about a guide. I'm thinking about a guide. I'm thinking about someone who faces day-to-day mindset blockers or people that are going through stress. So, I see the coach Let's see it.
Well,
Let's
now
see
I
how
see it. You've helped me see it too. So I'm starting to see it too. And it's actually been a really interesting shift. And
interesting.
it's
Yeah,
more
it's
like a broadening. It's not a shift. It's just kind of broadened a little bit the way
right.
that I think about it. So
Yeah, it's less on the tactical. It's more about the
yeah,
mindset, right? It's so
totally.
interesting. Okay, now
Yeah.
I want to understand one thing, right? Because in the early days, you were college admissions slash coaching. I'll call you a coach
Mm-hmm.
if that's okay.
Yep. Yep.
And you're testing waters, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
coaches out there are. They're like seeing if this is gonna land, if this is going to happen. But eventually you realize, okay, I'm building a real business around this. This is real. This is something. What was that for you? I mean, was it the first paying client? Was it a feedback you had from a client? Was it like the first invoice, that you realize, okay,
Yeah.
this is happening?
I mean, I think the simple answer was when I started thinking about it. I had worked with like one or two students while I was working full time. Not really so much at the school because that was what I was doing all the time, but when I was working at the CEO membership organization, and it was a really great experience to work with them outside of their school doing the work that I had done before. And so I started thinking, I wonder if this could be possible. And I guess the moment that I felt like, okay, this is really happening was when I can't remember what spurred me to do it, but I was like, I need a website. And I'm not very techie, but I dug in and I was still not totally committed to the idea. So I built my own website using, one of the platforms out there, nothing too fancy, but I built it. A friend did some branding for me and it went live and I shared it with a bunch of people. And the feedback I got made me realize that they weren't looking at it as like my little experiment, but as my company that I had just started. And I had started an LLC, but I had done that before just for little side things that I had done. So I was like, wow, and they started sending me other companies that were similar to mine and say, oh, I like the way you do this better than the way these people do this. And I was like, okay, this could like be my real business. And then I, as many people probably do, have been sort of easing myself. I did quit my job a little over a year ago, but I kept a couple of freelance writing things. And I've been, I had a couple of sort of other things that I considered my safety net. So I've kind of eased into it. But, I know it's not what you asked me, but my biggest challenge right now is cutting away those other safety nets because I need more time. I'm ready. And I think I probably was ready
Mm,
6 months ago.
okay.
So,
Let me ask you one thing. I feel the need to dive in a little bit deeper because I see a lot of coaches out there making that
mhm.
leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
Which you told me you quit the job, you went full gas on it, and how did that look like? I mean, was it scary? Did you
Yeah.
felt like, for example, an identity shift? And I'll expand on that. Like I worked in corporate
Yeah.
several years. I worked in banking several years,
Yeah.
and I always joke about that. Like I'm in a birthday party.
Yeah.
Brittany asked me, "Hey, what do you do
Yeah.
for a living?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
used to say X, Y, and Z, right? Like
Yeah.
yourself. I'm a teacher. I'm a
Yeah.
dean. I'm a blah blah. I'm in corporate. I'm a consultant. And I'm like thinking for a second, what am I doing? Is it coaching? Is it
Yeah.
who am I? Right?
Yeah.
How did that feel for you?
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I think that's exactly the test, right? When somebody asks you what you do. And I was really, I think, fortunate and also maybe kind of a chicken in the first 4 months. I stayed on my company that I had left. I left my full-time job. Hadn't hired a new writer yet. So they kept me on for the next 4 months as a freelance writer. And it was a lot of hours in the beginning. So I had a pretty hefty safety net. So through that summer, I said, oh, I still work for this organization, but I'm on contract now. And so I'm also doing some college counseling on the side. And it's only been really in the last couple of months that I've dropped everything else except for the college counseling. And I am still doing more writing than honestly I really have time for. And I'm working on that.
Uh-huh.
But that has dropped out of the answer to that question because I've kind of
Mm.
realized I need myself to hear that I'm fully committed to it. I need other people to hear that I'm fully committed to it. Like this has to be what I'm doing, and it is what I'm doing. So,
Okay. Isn't it funny? Like I'm listening to
yeah.
you. You mentioned twice one term, which is safety net. It's almost
Yeah.
like you feel the need to be pushed out of your comfort zone so you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
actually hit all gas, right? Which is kind of coaching, right?
Yeah.
You need to get
Yeah.
people out of their comfort zone so they can
Yeah.
apply for
Yeah,
the,
you're
the
right.
schools and
You're right.
start believing, right?
You're right. That's a really good point. That's exactly a
Mm.
right point. And there are like, pretty mundane and hard reasons why the safety net mattered. Like when I left, I still had 2 kids in college. I still have 1 in college. Like I couldn't afford to go for a couple of years with almost no income after, not that I was ever making a ton of money, but I couldn't afford much of a drop. So it felt like it was important for that reason too. So
Okay, interesting. Now
yeah,
back to the business side, and
yeah.
I want to understand one thing. In the early days, right, we're testing water, seeing how that looks
Mm-hmm.
like, trying to help everyone. Eventually, we get to our
Mm-hmm.
niche, right? The
Yeah.
people you tend to attract, the people you actually can really feel good about helping.
Yeah.
So, who are they? Who do you serve right now? And if there was part of it, was kind of an evolution to it. Like at the start, I was trying this, and now it became
Yeah.
this.
Well, the easy answer is at the start, it was yes to anybody who who was looking for help. College counseling is an interesting sector of the coaching world and even of the education world, especially when it's private and happening outside the school, because the primary client is the child who generally finds me when they're in their second to last year of high school. And sometimes they show up as late as the last year of high school, and they're trying to figure out their path forward. But the reality is that the client is also the parents, and in a great and fortunate situation, the two are really aligned, and it's one conversation between the whole family. The way that we do at college in America is it's stupidly expensive, and so it really is important. The family's position matters a lot, but at the same time, it can get when the parents want one thing and the students want another thing, and the parents maybe want it for reasons of prestige, and the students maybe think they want that too. There can be some complicated tangles up and misalignments there. So I would say that now I've gotten to the point where the people that I am not really the optimal coach for are the families who come up, and I only hear from the parents, and it's about what the parents want. And we don't, in the first 2 or 3 conversations, the parents are present and I'm not hearing the kid's voice, and they're not talking about what the kid wants. And then the little bits that I learn about what the child has chosen to do with their time doesn't seem aligned. Then I think this is going to be a tough one, because this is one where they're really far away from the place that I try to help people find, which is a really deep self-understanding on the student's part, and then also on the parent side of like not just how great of a place could they possibly get in, but like what's the right place for them? Where will they thrive? Where will they be happy enough to do really well? Where will they find the opportunities that match their skills and hopes and dreams? So misalignment on that front, and people who are just seeking prestige. There are lots of coaches out there who trade on that. That's what they promise. My percentage of kids who've gotten into Ivy League schools is this high. Like they might not be the ones for me. And I have plenty of kids who go to Ivy League schools. That's not the issue. It's that, seeking
Mm.
prestige more than authentic match.
Ooh,
So
careful there. You're in coaching territory with those words. It's almost like alignment, authenticity, what's right for them. It's not just a recipe. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Careful there. Okay.
Authenticity is a word that I lean into in all
Mm,
my early conversations. So yeah.
okay. Interesting. So let's create a differentiation as
Okay.
if I understood that
Yeah.
correct. We're talking about a paying customer, parents,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Yep.
talking about the coachee, which is the student, right? So those two navigate, and Chauncey has to align somewhat to an extent, a
Yeah.
common ground, so we
Yeah.
can move forward.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love for us to do kind of a game of pretend here. So
Okay.
let's pretend I am one of those parents, right?
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
my kid and I'm looking to this type of services you offer. So, first of
Mm-hmm.
all, how would I be able to find you, like marketing wise?
Well, that's a great question. And this is probably the next big leap I need to take. Most of my business has been built through word of mouth so far. And I do post on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, but not super regularly. And I am a member of a couple of organizations where I'm listed in their directory, but it's been, I've got some third, referral from a referral from a referral. I've gotten that deep yet, but I have not yet taken the step of a big leap. So if you're here, you probably talked to somebody else who talked to somebody else who worked with me and was really happy with their outcome.
Okay.
For
We're,
now,
s-
for now.
we're,
And I know
we're,
that's
s-
one of the suit the near-term things that needs to evolve, but
Right. Now let's keep on the game. Okay. We're still
okay.
pretending I'm that person.
Yep.
Let's say I was referred to work with you or
Yep.
even found your website somehow,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
I was like, you mentioned that. I'm like, okay, this seems cool. And I reach out, let's speed up the sales process. Or we can dive in a little bit. I'm curious about one part. And let's say there is alignment of sorts. You see, you can help
Mm-hmm.
me. I see you can help us, right? Me and my kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, how does it look like to work with you and the potential outcomes I can expect? You know?
Yeah, that's great. Well, first we'll have a conversation probably with the parents. Just you and I. So we'll talk through what you all are looking for as a family, because while the students are my primary clients, I do understand the extent to which this whole undertaking really is a family project, and a lot of realities of the family situation determine the outcome and the possible outcomes. So, I don't ever aim to shut the parents out. They're always part of the conversation. So we'll start there. I will explain how I work, which is once we decide to work together, most of my meetings will be one-on-one with the student. I meet students in person if they live near me. I meet them virtually if they don't. I will share my very complete and thorough notes afterwards with the student and the parents every time, so nobody feels out of the loop. And then periodically, usually like at the end of a semester it'll be a time for a family meeting, and I'll reach out and say, let's all get together, make sure we're really still aligned, and give everybody the opportunity to ask their questions and, make sure we're all on the same page. But most of my work will be with the student. And then we will decide. These days, all of my clients actually are purchasing packages. I do have the option for like one-off hourly, but I'm trying to honor the space for the package clients. So they will buy a pack of sessions that includes all the research that goes into it, all the notes that come out of it. I work with students. Part of this process is writing essays, so that's included in all of that, essay coaching as well. And then, I often advise families to start with a smaller package, because not every student needs the same level of support. And parents are notoriously unreliable when it comes to sharing how much support they think their student will need. Oh no, she's very independent. She can do it really. She just needs a little bit of guidance and then she can get it all done. Doesn't often turn out to be true, or the opposite. So, we can always add a second package after that. So I don't want anyone to feel ever like they have over purchased and they're trapped in this situation that they're not going to need. And that's worked out really well so far. People feel like they're in control and they feel like they're getting what they need. So what I will do is I will send you my pricing sheets after our conversation. You'll talk to your student. We talk a little bit about cadence, like how often does it make sense to be meeting right now? Are you a junior in the second half of your junior year? Are you at the beginning of your junior year? Are you in the summer leading up to your senior year? It's different depending on where you are. And then we'll get started. We'll set the first date. I like to make them regular. I'd love to meet at the same time every week. And of course, we can modify if we have to, but build this into your routine is the best recipe for success.
Okay. We're still in that same scenario. I'm still that parent.
Yeah.
First question I have for you, which I'm very curious about that. I have two boys, right? One is 3, the other is 7. Actually, one is 4, the other is 7. It just had his birthday party. Now let me ask you this. Let's say my kid is giving you a hard time. Let's say he's no showing. Let's say it's lacking motivation. I am all in. I'm the parent. How do you navigate that?
I reach out and I'll say, I'd love to touch base with you on the phone is fine, or we can schedule a meeting. Do you have a few minutes? This has come up before. This is not the first time. I mean, the kids are usually less difficult than the parents. That's parentheses outside of our scenario. But occasionally they're a little reticent or they're disorganized or they don't show up. And I say, look, I know we planned for this pace and to get this amount of work done in this amount of time. And I know we're shooting for this, but I'm noticing in my conversations with your son that he seems very ambitious, but he's not hearing me when I'm saying your grades are really strong, but you don't have much else to your story. Like you're not using your time productively outside of school. And he keeps saying, we've talked 5 times now about getting and joining this club at school or getting involved in this committee, and it seems to not be happening, and time is passing. And I want to, without discouraging him, I want to impress upon him that urgency. So I thought I would just touch base with you and see what you're seeing at home, because this is going to end up being a real weak spot in his application if we don't create something that we can discuss meaningfully sometime pretty soon. And so tell me what you're seeing. What do you see on your side? And what's your take on this? And I want to make sure that you hear, number one, that this could become a problem. And number two, help me with any insights. Kids often, I don't see everything, the relationship that I build with them is the value of the work that I do. But at the same time, they either try to bring their best self to all of our meetings, or, they procrastinate and they're shy or they're introverted, and there's a lot that I don't see. So just checking in on that front and finding out what you're seeing at home that I'm not seeing can be really helpful.
So again, on a side note, careful, best version of themselves. That's coaching talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Take it easy,
Yeah.
Chauncey.
Yeah. I told you my mind is open to this now.
Now, the second question, the follow-up, I'm going to reverse roles. Okay.
Yeah.
And something caught my attention when you were talking and the origin story and all that, who you serve. So let's say I'm that classic parent. I'm actually a lawyer, so very successful, won my kid in an Ivy League, but the kid is telling you, man, I don't see myself doing X, Y, and Z that my dad wants me to do, and he's the paying customer. How do you navigate that one?
Yeah. So can I do a parentheses in here?
Yes.
As a differentiator between the way I approach this business and the way some other people do, I know of organizations and groups of coaches and companies that exist. And in the training that they have with their coaches, they present a scenario like that. And if the person answers, well, then I try to sort of get the parents to understand a little bit that the kid is in a different place. Then they say, nope, wrong answer. The parent is the client. You always do what the parent says. And so that's not me. So first of all, if we're deep in and it's too, I will never drop a kid when we're really invested in this process because it's too important, and I just won't do that to them. But so I say, all right, let's think about this. We need to think about the ways that you can talk to your parents about this and the ways that I can be helpful in the way that you talk to your parents about this. So for starters, let's not suggest that we strike this from the list, right? Let's show on your side an openness to consider a variety of possibilities. And then, all we're doing is asking them to do the same. Say, okay, I'll keep Columbia on the list, no problem. But at the same time, can we add a few other things that might suit me a little bit better? And then so I'll talk to the kid about what they can do and how they might approach the conversation and the way they might formulate their conversation with their own parents. And I'll say, what I can do on my side is just tell them what I see, which is true, which is that, you seem to be really, like, based on all the things that you've done all through high school and the things that you have done the best in and where you've performed at the highest level are not the things that align with this path. So I think that makes you less of a strong candidate for this really, 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 competitive Ivy League program. So I think we need to make sure we have a variety of options on the list. The hard part is, I don't know if you're aware of this, Pedro, but we have this thing here called early decision at a lot of universities, which if you apply early decision to a university, you sign basically a contract. It's not a legal contract, and say, I understand that if I'm telling you you're my first choice, if you accept me, I will come. I will drop all my other applications and I will come. And for many universities, they really like to accept those kids because they like to accept kids who are going to come. And so the real trick will be convincing the parents to forego the early decision. So I think starting the conversation early is really important. And I think, not saying, I think we should strike this from the list, but saying, like, let's consider some other options. And then just talking about my past experience and saying, what I have seen over the years is that students who have maybe meet the criteria on this level and this level, but the life that they've lived doesn't seem to match with what they will be telling this university they want to do because they don't want to do it, then I think it's a long shot. And I actually think that's true. That's not a strategy. And so in the worst case scenario, I would say, okay, let's do it. Let's apply early decision with pretty strong confidence that that child's not going to get in anyway because they have not built the resume. They haven't become the person that they're putting forward in their application. And like I said, this is my big thing that I always say to kids is authenticity is your best strategy. And they can read right through it if you're presenting a version of yourself that's not you. So
nice. Okay. Well,
yeah.
First of all, I'm in Brazil, right? Audience already established that and knows that. And that's very wild when I'm talking with you because this is an industry that simply does not exist here.
Yeah,
I
totally.
thought also it was very interesting that they kind of. I'm thinking about the correct analogy of drop everything else and come home to me, which is basically an agreement
Yeah.
they want to push. Which is like I'm thinking about past girlfriends, right? Like you
Yeah.
cannot talk to anyone unless me, and I'm accepting that. Sounds like a threat, right? But
Yeah.
weird agreement. I'm just trying to wrap
Yeah.
my head around it. Totally
It's
fair. I
really weird.
understand.
How
It's
have we
weird.
gotten here? I don't know. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it's outrageous. And actually, there are some lawsuits going on right now about early decision and is it really equitable? And of course, the answer is not at all, because especially if you're a student who needs financial aid or some kind of scholarship, you can't afford to play that game. So it's really only available to the families who don't have a lot of financial need. So
Right.
no, it's not
Okay.
fair at all. But
But
that's where we are. We have to exist
that's the
within this
game.
system. So,
That's
yep.
the game you play. It's all fair.
Yeah.
All it makes sense. Now, let me ask you this because you brought something I thought it was interesting. You mentioned hourly fee, you mentioned
Yeah.
programs and packages, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing I see every coach,
Yeah.
regardless of industry, his work or niche, is like
Yeah.
a topic that I feel a lot of them wrestle, which is
Yeah.
pricing, right?
Yep.
But not the no hard numbers here. It's more about the
Yep.
mindset behind it
Yep.
because
Yep. Yep.
you're trading your time for dollars, right? And in the early days, sometimes we working with lower fees. We're trying to make it happen. So, how do you think about it today, pricing? And were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate in the sense that the industry that I'm in actually is, unlike in Brazil, a pretty big industry. And it's mostly made up of people like me, like independent contractors or small groups. There are nobody has emerged yet as like the giant of college counseling. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure PE is paying attention because there are some groups that exist now that are somewhat large, that are, pretty large, more than a handful of people. But we have a lot of industry groups, and I'm a member of several of them. And there's one in particular that does a survey every year of all of the independent counselors who are part of the organization. And a big part of it is on pricing. And so it just so happened that I joined the organization right before I started my business. And that was right when the pricing survey came out. So I was able to see like what kind of variety there was out there, what the average prices were, how many people only worked hourly, how many people only worked packages, how many people split it. And then I tried to think about where I am, both geographically and also in my career. And I do know some other people who are doing what I'm doing, talk to them a little bit about it. I'm comfortable where I've landed. I think I probably could start with the baseline could be higher, and then I could have people who buy a bigger package. And if they don't use 5 or 6 of the sessions and we finish and they get in, they'll be so happy they won't be upset. I could do that. I haven't done that yet because people really seem to react positively to this whole notion that I want to create a process that fits you and your child specifically. So I priced higher than I felt comfortable, and I think I could have gone higher to start.
Okay.
And I could change. I raised my prices the first, when we turned to 2026. So I'll keep doing that. But
Okay.
I do feel a bit there, like I feel less confident in that part of the business than I do in the coaching part of the business.
Okay. Interesting. Now, let's shift gears for a second. Love to talk about
Mm-hmm.
future, right? You just mentioned
Mm-hmm.
26. So, where
Yeah.
are you taking all this, right? Looking ahead, Chauncey, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited?
Yeah. So honestly, my first next step is, like I said, to disentangle myself from the extra things that I'm doing, which I'm working on and I'm making progress. And I have a timeline for that. I have created one new product, which is essay classes for students that are not necessarily my clients. And I'm running those through the summer. And so far, not pretty good. Yeah, they could be, it seems like a pretty good first year. It's looking like it hasn't started yet and I'm still getting signups. So that is something that could become a revenue driver. And I'm very close. I've been thinking a lot about bringing on somebody, as a contractor to help me. And I'm trying to figure out my approach to that. And it's a funny business because almost everybody's independent. So we're all in the same boat, but we're also kind of all competing against each other. So I find that people are really happy to talk about certain aspects of it, but then other aspects they get pretty cagey pretty quickly. And especially since, virtual is pretty ubiquitous now. So it doesn't matter where people are, we're still competing against each other, especially if we know some of the same people. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what that looks like. I would love to bring somebody in to, as a contractor to help me work with kids, to allow me to bring on a couple extra kids a year, to start, and then learn a little bit more about. I've been thinking a lot about, like, what is it that has to be the same between the way that I work with kids and the way that people who are working through Lighthouse work with kids. And it's such a personality driven business that I think it's okay. And there's room for, I'm the really soft one and she's the really hardline one. It's okay for a little bit of that, but there have to be some non-negotiables. So I've been working on articulating those. And I think I'm going to practice approaching a couple of friends who might be willing to take on one or two because they're still working in a school or at a university, and see how that goes and take it from there.
I immediately thought of that network, right? As you were
Yeah.
a dean, and I immediately thought, like, my wife, I can see. Well, this industry doesn't exist here, but I can
Yeah.
see she doing something like that, like on a part-time
Mhm.
basis, just testing
Mhm.
waters. I think it's totally doable.
Yep.
Also, on a side note, which is a fun one, good cop, bad cop. Is that what I hear?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting in the application industry and all that. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, there's always something we're refining, right? New
Yeah.
projects and all that. So, what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
I did create a business plan for myself. I kind of forced myself to do that because I needed that discipline, because that's not my background at all. But since I created it and I rolled it out and it seems like it's quote unquote working, I've replaced my salary. So I didn't have the drop.
Nice.
I need to, but I need to tighten it up. I created it and then I kind of moved forward. It hasn't been my constant partner. So I think on the business side, I'm actually meeting with somebody next week who I'm just going to hire, I think, as like to do the books basically, and just sort of, I want to learn from this person a little bit more, because this is my area. In spite of the fact that I worked for 4 years for a business organization, I didn't learn a ton about finance. I learned a lot about entrepreneurship and a lot about, the spirit that it takes and the big moves and the ups and downs and no man's land. But the nitty gritty, I need some help with that. And then as soon as I feel confident that I am ready to think about how it might look when I grow, then I need to step forward in marketing. And I haven't done that on purpose yet, because if 10 families called me tomorrow, I can't do that. I don't have space for that. So I want to make sure that by the time I'm ready, or that by the time I make that happen, that I'm ready, that I can, I don't
You
want
don't
to put the
want
cart before the
chaos to
horse.
take over, right?
No.
You're avoiding chaos, which happens a
Yeah.
lot in the industry.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
let's go into a little bit of a sci-fi thing here, science fiction. Let's pretend we do have a time machine in front of us, okay? You can step in. I know it's pretty fresh for you, but
Yeah.
like, we're talking about Lighthouse, a year, right?
Yep.
Open shop. But let's say you can go back to one particular moment that is like the happiest moment you had since you started the business, okay? That really filled
Yeah.
up your cup. What would that be?
That's really easy, actually. And it's a cyclical business. So it's the same answer pretty much every year. But there are two moments. There's the moment like between the beginning of December and like the third week in December, when the first wave of responses come in from the universities. And so these kids that I've been working with for a year, some of them a year and a half, and that will be more of the year and a half kids in the future, when they have traveled all this distance and really come to understand who they are and thought about what matters to them, and really thought honestly about the kinds of environments in which they can thrive. And so they make a decision. I always encourage them to shoot for the moon. I will never say like, well, you might not get in, so don't apply there. And when it's a match and when it works out and they get an acceptance, they call me right away and they're crying and they're so happy. And their parents are so happy. And so that's a really impressive, I mean, that moment to me is really great. And, sometimes it doesn't happen till the spring. Sometimes they get a maybe or they get a no, and then they have to go to another one. But the fact is that I've really never had a situation where by the end of the whole process, somebody didn't have a plan that they were really happy about, even if it wasn't what they thought they wanted in the beginning. And so seeing that we just had, the last couple of weeks were all the high school graduations in America. There's a big range of dates, but from late May through last week, they were all finishing. And so I send everybody who worked with me this book that I really love, that's called Designing Your Life. That's about, making decisions about the kind of life you want to lead. And I got to send them cards, and I've heard from all of them, and it's such a poignant moment in a young person's life when they're about to start this new chapter. And, the way it looks in our country, on top of everything else, they're almost always moving out of their parents' house for the first time. So so those moments are like, the parents are happy and that's important and that's great, but it's the kids really. And they just are believing in themselves and they feel really confident and they feel ready,
You know
So
what?
that's really
I
awesome.
really love that. Like my dad, who was a dean of a university here in Brazil too.
Yeah.
I skipped that, but he always told me that he never remembered the average. He always
Yeah.
remembered the top and the
Yeah.
and the lower, the bottom.
Yeah.
But the people who really stayed with him were the transformational ones that
Yeah.
actually proved him wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When he was like, okay, this kid not happening. And
Yeah.
then he actually makes it and makes the effort
Yeah.
during the entire journey and he proves you wrong. And he was like, oh,
Yeah.
I love those. Do you have
Yeah.
any of those that you're like looking at the start? You're like, I'm not sure about if it's going to make it. And he ends up making it.
Yes.
Oh, those are
Yeah,
great.
totally. But I have I would say even more common is the kids who come in and they don't believe that they can make it. And the good news is that making it means a lot of different things,
Right.
and they come in and they don't have a lot of confidence. And by the time they finish the journey, there's a college in this country for everybody that wants to go and can manage it, even if they don't have great finances. Like, there are a lot of options. And if they've traveled the distance to understand themselves and understand why this place that is attainable for them makes sense for them and they've become excited about it, it's really more like they surprise themselves more than they surprise me, honestly.
Okay, I love
And
that.
so
Sorry, I
I
get
would say
excited.
for me, it's less about the kids that are average or less memorable. It's more like there are some days where we're slogging through these essays and they feel like they're not moving forward and they thought they really wanted something and they're realizing that's not true. So it's a long and can be tedious process. But at the end, we both forget all of those days. So,
Okay.
which is really great.
Really great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see it. Now, if someone listening wants
Mhm.
to connect with you or follow your work, Chauncy, and we're going to have the
Yeah.
links in the description, but what's the best
Yeah.
way for people to find you and connect with you?
My website is got my email all over it. I'd love to get an email. There's a form that you can submit, but you don't need to submit the form. You can just send me an email through there and I'll get back to you that day. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There were a few moments from this chat today that I feel the necessity to highlight. Okay. Let's
Mhm.
start with
Mhm.
the origin story, Chauncey. Like,
Yeah.
you're telling me you were you were not still committed when we're talking about the shift, right? You were in the middle of the leap. You're not
Yeah.
still committed to the idea. And across the entire episode, you're showing how human you are at the end of the day. I know this sounds a little bit baffling if you're thinking about, oh yeah, but she's a human being. Yeah, but there's a lot of people
Yeah.
out there they try to hide their
Mhm.
their true way of doing things. They're just being you. So kudos to you. I really like watching you. Okay.
Thanks.
And
Thank
the way
you.
you talk, and I can sense it. Like, you're true to yourself. Also, when we were talking about, and you're like, yeah, but what's the right place for them? Not just a great place, not
Mhm.
just a
Mhm.
Columbia or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
what's the right fit. So I
Yeah.
love that, because that it means you're looking for alignment. What's
Yeah.
right for that person. It's not a cookie cutter. You need to understand what they do, where they want to go. So there's that. So I would say one of the last but not least is when we were talking about managing the drama, right? The
Yeah.
father, the parents, the kids, and
Yeah.
the way you framed it, it's almost like a game plan, a team
Mhm.
effort, and
Yep.
siding with the right thing, not
Yep.
the transactional thing. Like,
Yeah.
if they're the paying customer, I should side with them. Not really.
Yeah.
Your way of doing things shows integrity, right? So it's about what's the right call here and who am I serving before I serve X, Y, and Z. I need to serve myself, because you do have an understanding of what's right and what's wrong, because you can see the both spectrums, right? You're looking at the kid, you're looking at the parent. So kudos to you
And they
too.
both matter. They both matter. But
Exactly. And you
Yeah.
can navigate those. Now,
Yeah.
this is just my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay? It was great
Thank you,
having you on.
Pedro. Yeah, it's been really fun talking to you. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.